Hey friends, my name's Lisa if we haven't met, and if we have, welcome back to my pottery studio. As you can tell, we are full on into construction here. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but in today's video I wanted to address a couple questions that I've gotten recently about my glazing technique and the fact that I leave my rims unglazed. I've gotten some great questions about that, and I wanted to address that. And then at the end of the video, I will walk you around a little bit and show you some of the progress on the new studio build. So if that sounds interesting, stick around. Okay, I wish that I could be making something or throwing something for you all today, but obviously I can't right now. I'm looking forward to this space when it's going to be finished, but for today, I thought it would be a good opportunity just to address a couple of questions that I've gotten, and they're actually really, really good questions, so I do want to talk about it. Mainly the question that I have gotten the most about is, in a couple of my glazing videos, I've shown that I will tend to wax resist the rims on my mugs. In the last video when I made these little matcha bowls, I waxed the rim, and I do that for an aesthetic reason. I do that because I do usually a different color glaze on the inside than I do on the outside, and that helps me keep a really clean line between the two glazes. Now, one of the questions I get often is the raw clay that's right here rough to touch? Like, if it's on your lips, is it rough? For my clay body, I fire with a Cone 6 porcelain clay from Laguna, and it is not at all rough. It's actually incredibly smooth. However, if you do have a kind of groggier clay body, I imagine that unglazed area would be maybe a little bit rough. One of the things I often do, almost always do, is when I pull pieces out of the kiln, a lot of times I might get a little kiln wash that kind of sticks to the bottom, because I don't have those cool advancer shelves yet. Maybe someday, but not yet. So I might get some kiln wash, or it might be a little bit rough on the bottom. And there's two things that I use to smooth that out. And they're also tools that you could use on your rim if you needed to, if you had kind of a rough spot. So one is this, I think it's kind of a grinding stone. This is by Kemper. And I will find, if I can find a link for this, I will put it into the video description below, but this is a Kemper grinding stone. I have a couple of them, and what I will just do is take it and go all the way around the bottom of each piece, kind of like that. And then I like these because they're kind of, you can get the end of it, into the foot, so I kind of get the corner in there a little bit, and just take off anything that's kind of sharp, and it really makes it buttery smooth. So this is one tool that's great. In theory, if I needed to, I could certainly go around, that probably sounds horrible, sorry. But you could certainly take it and grind around that rim if you did have a rough spot, and then just rinse it off because it'll leave like a bit of a residue. The other thing that you can get, which is pretty cool, I think these are made by Diamond Core Tools, I'm pretty sure, but it is a sanding block, and I think it is actually little fine chips of actual diamond. I could be wrong about that. That's what I like to believe. I like to believe I have diamonds in the studio, but I have one it's marked as 240. I have one that's also 120. Frankly, I don't know that you need both. You could probably just use one, but you can just use it exactly like a little sanding sponge that you might have for wood, and just do the exact same thing. Kind of go around it. You can do it on the bottom as well. And probably good to do it under running water. I don't have that available right now, but I would. And it will help smooth out any of that exposed clay. Okay, so that is that, I think, regardless of whatever clay body you use. You can use either of these two tools. You can get a very nice, smooth rim, so it's definitely comfortable to drink out of. The next question / comment that I get is about, is this... I want to say, is this food safe? People ask, is it, or will comment and say that I should put a food safe glaze, or you shouldn't have exposed clay anywhere that you're going to have contact with a drinking liquid or something you're going to consume. And there's maybe two reasons why people would be concerned about that. One is pretty valid. One's a very valid reason. The other, I'm going to say, is not a big concern. But the first concern, very valid concern around that, is that an exposed clay can absorb water. We don't like that. We don't want that. In fact, it's not a great thing, but exposed clay can absorb water. And all clay bodies have a absorption rate. Now you can go to your clay manufacturer online. You can probably go to their website and it will tell you what they've rated their water absorption at. So it's usually, they'll list the shrinkage rate, they'll show the water absorption rate. There is a absolutely fantastic YouTube video from Ceramic Materials Workshop. If I haven't talked about them before, Ceramic Materials Workshop is who I studied with when I studied glaze chemistry. I think I did like a year and a half, 2 years of study with them online, and they are the authority, I think, when it comes to ceramic materials, clay bodies, glazes, and I highly recommend their classes if it's something that you're interested in getting into. But there's a specific video they put out fairly recently, I think it was earlier this year, around absorption, and it's so important to go watch that video. It is going to vary depending on what clay body you use, but the concern with your clay body absorbing water and having exposed clay on your pieces is that it can absorb water, and unfortunately it can then foster like mold and bacteria, so gross. We don't want that. And depending on the level of absorption that your clay body has, it can be more or less prone to doing that. So it is very important to research the clay body that you're using. Now, I use a porcelain clay body that's made by Laguna, and it is on Laguna's website. I think it says it is a 0.12% absorption. I have tested it myself. What you want to look for is a clay body with under 0.5% absorption. Now, you will see clay bodies that have 3% absorption, 6% absorption. For functional wear, I would not want to use that clay body. I wouldn't even if I was glazing the rims, I wouldn't want to use that clay body because I still leave the foot unglazed, right? And the last thing I want is for someone to have my mug and put it in the dishwasher and see like mold growing on the bottom like that. Gross. So I would say look at your clay body and make sure that your absorption rate is under 0.5%. 0.5%. So according to Laguna, this is a 0.12%. Now, the cool thing about Ceramic Materials Workshop is they've also done an independent study of a lot of major clay manufacturers, at least in the United States, and they've independently tested the absorption rate. And I think their testing showed this clay body to have a 0.29% absorption rate, still under that 0.5%, which is what we're going for. So I have a high level of confidence with my clay body that it is not absorbing enough water, that it's going to foster much as far as mold or bacteria growth. But that's me. I want you to do what's comfortable for you. I do want you to research your clay body. That YouTube video that I mentioned, they also show you how you can test it yourself. So if you wanted to validate on your own, it is a fantastic thing to do. That's for me. I don't sell my pots right now. I've gotten that question a lot too. Maybe I will again. I have in the past, but I haven't in a long time. But I have no problem giving this to mom, grandma, elderly friends and family to drink out of. I have a high level of confidence that I'm not going to be poisoning them. I guess the second concern potentially that folks might have is around like food safety. And because I've heard you should put a food safe glaze covering your clay body. I think the theory there might be if your clay body was not food safe itself, to put a food safe glaze over top of it. And I'm just going to say this, if your clay body is not food safe, putting a food safe glaze on it isn't going to make it food safe. I would be really shocked if there was a major clay manufacturer that was making a clay body for functional wear that would not be considered food safe, but it could be wrong. Now, around food safety and stuff like that, I'll probably also refer you to Ceramic Materials Workshop, and they have a podcast called For Flux Sake, and it's a funny name, which I love too, but also the amount of knowledge that they share in that podcast is phenomenal. But there is a specific podcast, I think it's one of the first ones that they did, one of the first episodes that they did that talks about food safety. So I'm going to link that below as well. So go watch their YouTube video on clay absorption and listen to their podcast on food safety. Or food safe glazes, so to speak. But what I feel confident in is that when you apply a glaze to a clay body and you fire it, there's a chemical reaction that's occurring. And I do know that certain elements, I'm going to show you another mug here. This is by East Fork. And I love this mug so much. They also, in fact, leave an exposed rim. But the thing I love about their work is that they use a very iron-rich clay. And what we see on their glaze is this really cool speckled effect. And I've actually tried to mimic this glaze. I've tried to recreate this glaze because it looks so awesome, but the reason they get this speckled effect is actually because there's iron in the clay body, and during the firing process, that iron is leaching through the glaze and creating those little deposits where we see this cool speckle. So we know that iron will leach through. Now, if you had a clay body that had lead in it, I don't know why you would, but if you did, I would feel confident that that lead could potentially leach through the glaze during the firing process as well, and then you really don't have a food safe piece of pottery. I mean, if that's the concern, if the concern is that you're putting a coating of something that would make it food safe, I disagree. I really don't think that that's true. I think that materials that are in your clay body can leach through, and if your clay body is not food safe, it doesn't matter if you put a food safe glaze on top of it. Okay, well, that's a bit of rambling. So I do think that everyone should do what they are comfortable with and what makes sense to them. I do think everyone should do their own research on the materials that you're using, particularly if you're making functional pottery and if you're selling it and giving it to your friends or family, whatever the case may be. I would say do your research. And as far as food safety goes, that changes depending on what country you're in. So regulations can vary. I'm in the United States. This is 2024, so that could also change. My understanding right now is for a glaze to be considered food safe, meaning if you purchased a commercial glaze off the shelf, for them to be able to put a label on it that says it's food safe is basically just ensuring that they do not have lead or cadmium in that glaze formula. That's really it right now in the United States that quantifies something as food safe. So it's a pretty low bar, really. What I do think you need to be very cautious about or learn more about isn't just food safety, but it's about your clay body, your water absorption, and your glaze durability. And there's a lot that goes into that. Again, I cannot recommend Ceramic Materials Workshop enough. Take their classes, learn how to make durable glazes or understand what makes glaze durable and functional. It is well worth the investment. But enough of that fun stuff. I am going to show you around what we're doing here really quickly, and hopefully you can be excited with me as this whole new studio project is underway. Something that is not changing too much is obviously the location of my sink, because it's already plumbed right here in the basement. So the sink is going to stay in about the same spot. We've got all the drywall has been delivered, so it's stacked up back here. I think that starting tomorrow, today's Sunday, tomorrow's Monday morning, my very awesome contractor friend Craig is going to come back and start drywalling everything. So that's going to be exciting, but the sink is just pulled out now. It'll get pushed back to basically where it was before. Kind of coming around from where the sink is over here, back in this corner, if you recall, this is where I had my kiln, and I had my little baby kiln next to it. And initially I thought that was a fantastic idea because I just liked the layout and I thought the workflow of the studio would make a lot of sense with that. But one thing that was kind of not well thought out was I needed to vent the kiln, obviously, and this is the front of my house. You can go back one of my very first few videos. I showed me trying to get this kiln vented. And unfortunately, on that side of the wall up is a very lovely rock facade on the front of the house, and I obviously didn't want to put a hole into that. So I ended up having to mount the kiln onto the other side over here. It did work. It was fine. It wasn't as efficient. And so when I was firing, I could still smell some of the burn off. And it could be that my vent is like 20 years old now and could be replaced as well. But for good measure, I thought while we're doing all this, I'm going to relocate the kiln. So the kiln will be moving from this corner right here over to closer to where my breaker panel is, which is fantastic. And then right above here is where the actual vent is. So it'll have a very short length to vent out, which I think is going to be very helpful. So in this corner, unfortunately, is also where the whole water shutoff is for the whole house. So I actually think we'll have an access panel here to that. I'll probably have my baby kiln right here, but we'll kind of keep this corner open just so that we can get to that quickly if we ever needed to. This back wall, I'm going to build some custom shelves for work in progress. Again, big kiln will be here, little kiln probably right about here. I've got some really cool tile that I just picked up that I plan to tile from about here down, just kind of for aesthetic. I'm going to put hardy backer behind the kiln, so from a safety standpoint, it'll be good, but I think some pretty tile behind it, make it like a fireplace, right? And then coming back down this way, I did have him put in a plug up here so I can plug the kiln vent in down here. And it dawned on me just the other night that I could also ask him to put this on a switch so that I can have a switch down here to turn that outlet on, and then I can leave the vent always on, and then I can use the switch right here to turn it on and off. I've always had to have like a step ladder to get up to switch the little toggle switch on the vent on and off. And I am just so excited now because I thought about that, and he's going to add a switch here so I can just switch the vent on and off, and then back here, I had another switch put up here so I can mount a TV, which is kind of fun when you're working on stuff. I like to watch YouTube videos and listen to things when I'm working on projects sometimes. The back corner, we had him also put in this pony wall that's kind of running along here. Hang on, I'll turn you so you can see it. Okay, so we have this kind of pony wall that comes up to about here. It's high enough that some of the cabinets that I've made in the past will sit under it. Had him add a couple more outlets along here, and I will put in a countertop around here. Haven't quite decided yet. I might still have my slab roller and perhaps my wedging table. I'm going to put my wheel back in the corner where the kilns were before. So I'm still playing with some of the layout on it. A lot of things will kind of stay the same, but I'm excited about kind of reorganizing too. So that's kind of it. I will absolutely do a whole video on the whole renovation project, kind of start to finish so you can see what it looked like before, and then when it's finally done. But I am super excited. I cannot wait to have this whole thing done, and it's actually happening a lot faster than I thought it would. So my impatient heart is like just soaring right now. I think next weekend I probably won't be able to have a video because I'm going to be busy. I'm going to do the painting and then obviously moving everything back in and sorting through stuff. So probably won't have a video next weekend for you, but after that I will have a whole renovation video that I can share with you. And then we'll be off to the races making fun pots again. All right, so that's the update in the studio, but thank you always for hanging out with me and spending time with me today. I hope this answered and addressed some of your questions or concerns around my design, but I really appreciate the comments. I really, really enjoy the conversation. And if there's anything else that I didn't talk about that you'd like me to share more about, more than happy to do that. Just let me know. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Thanks, friends.